All right, $1.5 trillion. That is how much many in the Republican Party are weighing for tax cuts over the next decade. The cost of those tax cuts, I know many of you sort of wince at that. The tax cuts aren't a cost, they're not a program, but just to look at them over the next decade, $1.5 trillion. So the issue becomes then how do you justify that? How do you compensate for that so that after 10 years you've not exploded the deficit and, in other words, allowed the Republicans with a simple majority to get this thing through? New York Republican Congressman Dan Donovan, he's against a plan that gets rid of state and local deductions, not surprisingly in New York, where that could be costly, right?
It's about 10% of our residents' salaries. You have somebody who makes $100,000 a year, they pay about $10,000 in state and local taxes. You eliminate that deduction, and you eliminate their property tax deduction and their mortgage interest, and the people of New York would be paying more taxes.
Probably wouldn't remove the mortgage thing, but the state local taxes, they seem to be hell-bent on that. By that, I'm talking about the powers that be in Congress and even the White House. Do you think that would happen? That would get approved?
Well, I don't know. I've spoken to Steve Mnuchin and Gary Cohen about this. They told me they would prove to me that by lowering the tax brackets, by doubling the standard deduction, people in New York would be better off than they are now. I told both of them my driver's license says I'm from New York, but I'm now from Missouri. You got to show me. And
so you'd have to say in that $10,000 case that would more than compensate for losing that 10 grand.
Yeah, and I'm not too sure that those numbers actually work out.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for the administration to show me.
So you're not a fan of the argument, well, it will put pressure on states like New York to watch their budgets, to watch their taxing. You just think in the end...
I think what will happen in New York, if that happens, we'll see an increase in state taxes, whether it be sales tax or income tax. And the people that I represent, and the people of our city, will be paying more money in their taxes at the end of the day.
In the meantime, Congressman, where do you stand on this idea for tax cuts being revenue neutral and those being paid for? There are many in your party, the moderate wing, and I guess many of the White House who are looking askance at giving tax cuts to the rich, that you got to put a limit on it. You got to put a cap on it. You got to find a way to pay for them.
Yeah, I mean, Reagan did tax cuts in '81, did tax reform in '86. So during that time period, people saw more money in their net income. A person making $700 a week was now bringing home $740. That person, first of all, the president's a hero to that person. And that person's
so you got to see a substantial difference in net pay, which Reagan got, that unless people can see the net gain in their check, they're not going to realize.
No, and that person that has $40 more in their check every week, Neil, they're going to spend it. They're not going to save it. Yeah. My understanding of the economy is when people spend money and money moves, the economy grows and stimulates jobs.
But you also represent a party that at least talks a good game on deficits and debt. Are you in the camp that says if you go too far in tax cuts, you're going to make that situation even worse?
Well, I've heard economists say that if you make those tax cuts, we'll make up the deficit that it would create by the amount of money people are spending. So you make it on the other end. But Americans get an opportunity to dictate what happens to their own money rather than having their government do it.
Now, your district is Michael Grimm's old district, and he is apparently considering running. I don't know if it's definite, but he's challenging you in that event.
That's what I understand. He hasn't announced yet, but I would put my record up against anybody who wants to challenge. I have 6 Democratic challenges right now, but I served that community.
How is it that your district, which it's not overwhelmingly Republican,
not at all.
It's 2-1, you were saying Democrat.
Yeah.
Why does it more often than not go Republican?
I think the people in my community are able to distinguish between individuals. They vote for the person who they think will represent them the best. A lot of my residents are homeowners. They vote with their pocketbook, and that's why tax reform and tax cuts are so important to the people of Staten Island and South Brooklyn.
But Grimm was a rock star to a lot of them, his troubles notwithstanding, and eventually going to jail. How do you stack up against that? How do you guys handle that?
I think it's a different day now after you've been convicted of a federal crime and you've served time in federal prison. So I'm not too sure how much.
Would you support him if he were the nominee and somehow beat you?
I don't think that's going to happen, Neil. So I don't think that's not going to happen. I'll put my record up against anyone's.
All right, but you'd be ready to debate him, do whatever you have to do.
We'll do what you have to do to remind the people of Staten Island and South Brooklyn how well I've served them over the years.
All right. Now, part of that serving is giving them something back. There's a great deal of frustration, not with you individually, sir, but with Congress, that it can't utilize its majority, that is Republicans, and get stuff done. Is it your sense that if tax cuts aren't done this year, that you guys, forget about you, But as a majority party, you're toast. You're done next year.
I think the president's frustrated. I think America's frustrated. You know, we control the White House and both houses of Congress.
Whose fault is that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's someone's fault. I mean, everybody represents the people that sent them there.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's different interests throughout our country. A lot of
your views on taxes are very much in the conservative wing of the party that say, you know, tax cuts will by and large pay for themselves. There are others like Paul Ryan and the Senate side, Mitch McConnell, who say, well, no. They have to be revenue neutral. You do have to find a way to pay for them. So even within your party, there are stark contrasts, right?
But I do believe that everybody believes that we have to do tax cuts.
Yeah.
Now, the result of those tax cuts, how we pay for them, or what the effect of those tax cuts, you could ask one economist and it said they'll pay for themselves. You can ask another one that will say, no, it's going to grow.
Don't talk to economists.
No.
Right. Is it your sense then that if you get them and you leave out the rich and they don't get them, but they get lower corporate rates, for which I'm told they'll benefit, that'll be okay?
You know, we haven't even seen the Republican House plan yet.
But would you like everyone to get one, or are you okay if the rich are left out?
I don't think the rich necessarily need more benefits, and I think they find ways to benefit from our tax system the way it already exists. Yeah. I do believe, though, that if we would do tax reform on corporations to stimulate corporations to repatriate money back to our country, use that money for infrastructure for our nation. The president came to Congress and told us that the United States in the last 10 years spent about $6 trillion on infrastructure outside of our own country, Neil. We want to spend $1 trillion inside the country. I support the president in that plan and the way we could pay for it.
What do you think of the way he's been talking to Democrats on DACA, on this sort of stuff? A lot of your colleagues are getting a little nervous about that.
I think the president's frustrated, and he wants to work with anybody to move the country. The country's been stagnant for the last 8 years, and now he's, for the last 8 months, has been the leader of the free world. He wants to see some movement, and he'll work with anybody who will help move this country forward.
All right, and again, just to echo your comments to Michael Grimm, should he decide to run against you, as you're not stepping out of his way, you're going to work and keep your seat.
I'm in it for the long run.
All right, Congressman Dan Donovan, thank you very, very, very much.